What's happening in the canine industry? For all the latest news, views, and expert opinions, stay right here for the Canine Paradigm. You'll hear from industry leaders, experts, doyens of the industry, learned colleagues, movers and shakers, and the odd randy guest. Get the latest insights and expert advice from both here and abroad from the people in the know. Now, here are your hosts, Glenn Cooke and Pat Stewart. And I'm Lofty Fulton, and I'm out of here.
Glenda?
Yes.
We have to do a new ad.
We do.
It's a solemn time. Mm-hmm. Our long-time sponsor of the show, George Kittredge,
Yes.
very, very sadly passed away. And we formerly used to advertise for him his Rowdy Hound boxes.
We did.
So we don't actually know what's happened with Rowdy Hound boxes. You know anything about that?
I looked at the website. It said that they're recalibrating since their founder and boss has passed. But nonetheless, I think that you and I want to honour the memory of George Kittredge anyway. He was a friend to both of us, a hell of a good guy, and he supported us almost immediately. He was on board through and through, and I just don't want any of us to forget George. He was a terrific human being.
So we intend to continue to advertise Rowdy Hound, even though we don't know what's going on with them, in the hopes that they keep going, and that can be a bit of George's legacy that we're able to continue to promote.
I hope so.
In checking it out, we had a look to see, because we're not real good with the sponsorship. So we had a look to see who's actually paying for sponsorship. And we have a list of people to tell you that we support. And the first is our sugar mama, Barbara de Groot.
She's been with us from the start as well. Barbara's been an absolute staple in our...
She's a gem.
She is a gem.
She has a business.
She does. From the Heart Dog Training.
From the Heart Dog Training.
Yeah.
You can check it out. But she supports us as much and more than anybody ever has. So we appreciate you very much, Barbara. Another person who's supported us from the start.
The Einzelwiener.
Einzelwiener.
The Bullfed.
The Bullfed.
Yep.
It's where I get all my stuff.
Yeah.
It is, truly. It's where I get all my dog gear. If I need something, Jason's my first point of call. I don't use his shit website. He has a website. It's dog shit. I just message him directly. You guys probably should use his shit website, but I don't.
Yeah, because you don't want to message him directly and get his grumpy ire of the day.
Yeah, but do it. Get all your dog stuff from Jason. He's got everything you need. He's got all the shit that you need to train a dog for realty.
Everybody who comes to seminars and looks at mills and asks me mills questions, ask Jason.
Yeah.
Jason can point you in the right direction for getting the mill that's best suited for you.
I really like his leashes. I'm a big fan of his leash pack. That's why I sort of convinced him to do it. But anyway, get your stuff from Einzelwiener.
Yep.
Do you know who has a fantastic website and ships internationally?
My wife?
Your wife,
Yeah.
Canine Pharmaceuticals.
I couldn't imagine her not having a good website, how much of a perfectionist she is.
Well, the products are amazing. My dog merely being alive is a walking testimonial to that. My dog, who I've retired numerous times and has come out of retirement when I've managed to get his body back to healthy, and a big part of that is related to Canine Pharmaceuticals. So check it out, everybody.
I could say so many nice and biased things about Canine Pharmaceuticals and my wife, but what I will say is ignore me. Just look at testimonials. The testimonials speak for themselves. That's where the field trials are working. What makes Narelle's day, and mine as well, is when people are emailing in and sending messages of, well, primarily people have had no hope in the past because just everything that they were trying wasn't working, and now it is. And that is the testament that something is actually really working. And the other thing which I will add, one of the things that Narelle's told me in the past is dogs are incapable of understanding the placebo effect.
Oh, that's a good point.
So you can fake it on a human, but you can't fake it on a dog.
I never thought about that before. That's actually a really good point.
Well, my wife's actually a very smart person.
There you go.
So she's told me that humans are subject to the placebo effect where dogs are not. So it either works or it doesn't on dogs.
There you go. That makes total sense.
Yep.
There's one other person who puts a fair amount of work into this show.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah. Funny about that.
And I have a digital product that you can buy. If you go to my website, seriousdogbusiness.com, right now I've got 2 courses available to you. The Overview, which is a small course where you could learn how I teach.
Yep.
But the other one is the Wave Tops, which is a bigger course. It's everything I know about dog training. Well, it's not everything. It's a lot of what I know about dog training.
Yeah,
check it out.
terrific. Yeah.
$500 dues. That's all it's going to cost you.
I recommend it when people are saying, what do I do? How do I get in the industry? I recommend them to your course.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks,
Yeah.
sir. All right, on with the show. Welcome back to the Canine Paradigm. I'm your host, Pat Stewart, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Glenn Cooke. How are you?
I'm okay.
Tell us about it. You're coming out the back end of some pretty significant grief.
Well, as people know, I advertised it not long after it happened. I took a couple of days to sort of sit with it, but we lost poor old Randy Pants. Oh, fuck. Sorry. I'm having a bit of a struggle.
You're all right, mate. We spoke about this prior so that we were trying to get this part done, but here we go.
I think the part that I'm struggling with, the part that really sort of kicked me in the head a bit was we were expecting that 2025 would be his final year. Like it was going to be his last hurrah. Narelle and I have succumbed to that. It's possibly Opie's last year as well. I'm not sure. He surprised us. We thought that he might not make 2024 Christmas, but he's kicking on. He's a little trooper. And I will add that Narelle's been working around the clock, keeping him going and, you know, keeping him happy and keeping him moving as she does with all the dogs. Randy snuck up on us. As you know, we're making some significant, great life changes and there's some really fun and exciting things going on in our life at the moment. And we were really looking forward to sharing that with Randy, really looking forward to letting him experience that and having a part of that. It didn't play out that way. We got a call. We were off working on our project and the girls at Pet Resorts gave us a call and they said, Randy's in a bad way. He's not eating. He's refusing to walk and he's just not doing anything. As I've explained, and you know him well, like you've known Randy as long as you've known me. You've been his main decoy. You've been the person that helped me train him. When you and I were working on getting PSA going, he was one of the founder dogs. He was one of the founder dogs of Iron Fist. So you've had a long relationship with him and known him as long as most other people. The point that I wanted to make there is that Randy is the Energizer Bunny. Yeah, and I don't know if the Energizer Bunny is in the United States. Probably is, but in Australia they had this ad that the Energizer Bunny was this little bunny that just kept on going because he had Energizer batteries in him. And everyone else would phase out and give up the ghost. The Energizer Bunny would just move on. And that was Randy. He was the Energizer Bunny. He just kept fucking moving all the time. The dog had spirit, he had humor, he had so many wonderful, amazing qualities. It was one of the things that I remarked on in many episodes that when we took him to get his ear checked out one day when he got an ear infection, Jane, our lovely vet at Hills District Veterinary, she gave him a sedative because he just wouldn't stop wriggling around. It's not that he was aggressive. We didn't have to muzzle him or do anything. He just doesn't fucking stop. He just moves and he's like, what's up there? What's in here? Let me on the bench. I want to jump up onto the table. And I just said to Jane, he is a trained dog. I said, you wouldn't think so the way he's behaving when he comes in here because he'd do all the tricks. He'd do middles and sits and impressive jumps to heels and stuff like that. But he was just like curious about everything. I said, look, Jane, to let him look in your ear, we're going to have to sedate him. I said, it's just best for him, best for you. And I said, because he'll just clean out the room. And she said, yeah, I think it's best too. So she sedated him. She said, I just need to look at some blood of another dog. It'll take 5 minutes for it to kick in anyway. And we're sitting there and Randy just sort of like he was moving around, pacing around. I'm thinking this fucking sedative isn't going to work. It's, you know, like he just keeps moving around. And then he sort of sat down, then he lied down and then he just fucking flopped into this puddle that I've never seen him do before. And I thought, something's wrong. So I called Jane. I said, Jane, you better come back in the room. And she goes, why, what's wrong? And I said, have you given him too much? And she goes, no, giving him the exact amount. And I said, is he still alive? And she goes, he's breathing. And I said, yeah, but I've never seen this dog like this ever in my life. And she goes, yeah, he's sedated properly. She listened to his heart. She said, yep, beautiful, strong beating heart, breathing nicely. She said, he's just sedated. It was the first time I've ever seen Randy. I mean, I've seen him asleep and all sorts of things before, but it didn't take anything to arouse him. Like you could move past him and you think, what are we doing? I'm up.
He's one of those dogs that would even rest energetically.
Well, he was like that session in Rick and Morty where, you know, you go, I'm doing this. And you go, you son of a bitch, I'm in. He was invested, which is why he really loved PSA and which is why he really did well in it. And he could have done so much better had I been a bit more proactive and COVID hadn't hit. Like he could have really accelerated through it because he loved being involved and learning something or doing his bite work or doing his obedience. He just really loved it. He was an exceptional German Shepherd and probably an undercut in a lot of ways because I never really overexposed him as such. You know, I'm not that sort of person who just wants to keep talking my dog up like he's the most amazing dog in the world. He wasn't the most amazing dog, but he was an amazing German Shepherd. He was incredible. He was the first German Shepherd in Australia for a long time to get a PSA title until Rihanna got one with Barry, which I was ecstatic about. And even Adam with his dog, he was very close to getting a PSA title with his dog before he unfortunately passed away as well. I think all this ramble is just about me paying homage to an exceptional friend.
He, for me, was a foundation dog of the learning that I had. You know, like when you're so much of things that I just do now because you're like, well, that's what you do. he's the dog that I learned to do it on. So it was a heartbreak even for me. You know, like you say, I've known the dog as long as I've known you, but to see him go is like, oh, that's sort of a chapter, you know, like in that he's a foundational dog in many ways. He's the first dog in the country with a PSA 1 title. And a lot of the real decoying that I learned, like, you know, you learn sort of stuff before you're doing actual work. A lot of the real stuff I learned on him. Do you know what I was recalling the other day? Because we were talking about him at club. Do you remember how he's a leg dog? Because I gave a shitty presentation one time when we were early days doing his bite work and putting him on the suit. It was early days of me learning to do that kind of stuff in that way, you know, like I'd learned other ways, but like the way that, you know, we sort of ultimately land on now. And I just gave a shitty presentation. You were posting him and my leg got too close and he bit my leg and he dug in and then like was like, oh, I'm a leg dog now. That's it. Like he enjoyed it so much and that's it. Now he's a leg dog. He still bit in the arms when we wanted him to, but he chose that. And I remember he bit the right leg. And it was before we actually got PSA going and had seen much of it and knew that like traditionally we target the left leg in PSA. You can bite either. And I remember someone saying, like, how come you told him to target the right leg? I was like, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. That's why.
Good save, mate. And plus look, Harley was a all up and down dog. Like he would bite you in the legs and the arse and the back and the arms, whatever the target was, he'd do it because we trained him for that. You know, like I remember it was in the early days of Boyd getting one of the first Ray Allen suits that came out, and we were experimenting a lot with suits when arms were the thing. You know, it was all about Schutzen's style of training, and Boyd brought a bunch of suits back, and it was, I'm not going to say that we were the very first. I don't know. I'm not going to be that egotistical. I'm not going to be that egotistical and say that we were the very first, but we were innovative in that type of work anyway, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun to learn different things. I remember people from outside the club would be squawking about how irresponsible it was and how dangerous it was and so forth. But our response to this is Harley's a real-time street working dog. People don't come up and play fair when you're on the street. They don't come up and go, here is my beautifully presented arm with a weapon in it that I'm just going to put before the dog and allow him to bite. You know, people bite, punch, stab, shoot, do all sorts of nefarious things when they're out in the street. So we taught him that it's like shooting. It's like center of scene mass. It's the same sort of thing. Like take what you can get. And it wasn't about teaching anything irresponsible or teaching him to bite in a vital area or something like that. It was about taking a resting bite. If it's in the leg, take the leg. If it's in the arm, take the arm. If it's in the back of the arm, take the back of the arm. If it's in the front of the arm, take the front of the arm. Whatever it is, it wasn't about take something dangerous or vital. Having a sport dog, I thought, well, I've never really trained a sport dog to bite a leg in a competition because I was never really involved in things like Mondio or KNPV or anything like that. And I thought to myself, I've never really been active in a sport that does leg biting, but now that I've got the opportunity with PSA and, you know, now that we've done this and he likes it so much and he's really accelerating into it, let's just make him a leg dog. He loved it and I loved it. And, you know, I'm sure you liked working with him in the legs as well. I know he could bite pretty hard. He had a pretty...
he was that. I mean, that's my fondest memory of Randy. And I always kind of say it is he bit abnormally hard. Like he was a fucking really painful dog to work. Like it sort of made no sense. Like he didn't look like he looked like a lump.
He just sort of slopped onto you. It wasn't like he was dynamic where he ran in and smashed into you or anything like that. He sort of like just plundered over and went clamp and he just clamped onto people. But I remember visiting decoys and so forth and they said, oh, fuck, man, like I wasn't expecting that. Like when I was watching him working with Pat, it looked so passive. And then, you know, like he really bruises your fucking leg up.
I remember having a discussion with someone saying it's like his teeth are sharper or something. Like it just hurts more. I can't explain why. It doesn't look like it does. It's not like it's some vice grip and you like it's inescapable. Like it's just fucking hurts way more. So anyway, he was an impressive dog, mate, and I'm sorry I lost him.
Me too. And not just sorry for myself. I'm sorry for Narelle as well because she loved him as well and she spent a lot of time just being loving to him and just being a good family person to him, which I know he appreciated it immensely. You know, like I said in my eulogy to him, seeing her sitting out in the sun with him and just brushing him and caring about him and stuff like that. I mean, the dog loved it. He just loved life. He loved everybody, loved life. He wasn't that sort of dog that I have to worry about or if I took him out amongst people that there'd be an issue. You know, every NDTF course I'd take him out and I'd show him doing a healing pattern and I'd literally have him off lead with no tools on, banging him into students while they were all sitting in their seats, he loved it. They loved him. I could literally teach a whole lesson while he was sitting up on the couch at the back playing with his ball or just walking around the room being Randy. And that's some of the things that I appreciate most about him. Not that he had a title or anything like that. It was just that he was a really fun dog to be around. And I learned a lot about a lot of things with him. And, you know, like I said, he was one of the dogs that while we were sort of working out how to do PSA and what it meant and how to train the dogs, he was one of the dogs that helped us in our journey to do it and helped us meet some of the people that we met along the way. And it was incredible. What I do want to acknowledge and send out appreciation to is all of the very kind people who message me, you know, not only just on Facebook when I posted it, but there were people that were messaging me around the clock just saying, hey man, I'm just checking in. I just want to make sure you're okay. And for a couple of days, naturally, when people lose their dog, they're not okay. You go through some significant and immense grief because you've lost family, you know, like you've lost something that has walked a path with you and shared a road with you for a long period of time. But it was very, very appreciated. So thank you to everybody who reached out and the people who continue to reach out. It was very meaningful and I can't express enough love and gratitude for you doing that.
I think that's one of the things that you often don't realize how much of a community asset your own dog can be until it passes. I think that, you know, like we think of our dog and it's my special dog and I have a special relationship with this dog and it's all mine. But you forget that everybody who knows you has a form of a relationship with that dog that's all their own, right? And it's specific to them. Mm. And I think some people's dogs become something of a community dog. And for sure, like that's why you would have been reached out to by so many people because Randy was that. Like you've got a lot of friends, a lot of people that care for you. But the dog played a significant role in numerous people's lives. And even to people who had never met the dog, they've heard you talk about him for the last fucking 7 years on this podcast. You know what I mean? Like he's been a significant role in many people's lives. And they have their own version of him that they then have to deal with the passing of. And that for the people especially who really, you know, like there's only you, me, and a handful of other people who were the training of the dog and that closely, but so many people saw the dog. And like you said, you get him out every NDTF course. I remember you posted a video one time of him like healing and just randying amongst all the people. And, you know, so he played a big role. He's been a big part of many people's lives. And it's incredible that, you know, he got to do that and do that with you and through you. So
that was a particularly nice couple of messages I got of people, how he inspired them not only to learn the craft more, but to learn more about doing those type of skills with the dogs and getting them to a level where, you know, like there were times where I'd have him in on NDTF where I'd have some of my puppies running around. I remember when Macho was a baby and, you know, I was helping to raise Macho. I'd have Macho literally running under Randy's feet while Randy was doing a perfect healing pattern while I had a can curtain, you know, like running it over his head. And Randy was unfazed by the whole thing while Macho was biting at him and tripping him over and doing everything he could to disrupt the lesson. And people just said, how the fuck do you do those sort of things? And I said, it's a special type of dog. And I said, but it's consistency and regular patterns and understanding. And I said, but the reason why some people can't do this is because they don't spend enough time with their dogs to learn how to do it. But Randy's also, I said, Randy is a remarkable dog. I said, I'm not making any bones about it. I said, he's one of those dogs that you're very lucky to have and that you'll never replace. You can't replace dogs like Randy, and they're hard to find and they're impossible to replace because they're the sort of dogs that people are looking for, the ones that they swap out for a lot of times when I just happen to be lucky. You know, I was just lucky that his breeder, Lee Robinson, when I spoke to her on the phone and I mentioned what I wanted and what I was looking for, she said, I've got that here. And she said, but be careful what you wish for. And she said, because he's a lot of puppy. And a lot of people say that, you know, like a lot of people will talk their dog up. They get some people get very kennel blind. I've had that so many times where people have given me a dog and it's not the dog that they think it is in their mind, or it's a pretty good puppy, but sometimes people don't know what a real.
Yeah, it's the best they've seen.
It's the best they've seen, yeah. And it's not that they're misleading you. It's just that, you know, like they don't have the experience. They haven't sort of walked the path that I have and seen the dogs that I've seen over years. I'm not talking myself up and saying I've seen everything and I've been everywhere, but I've seen some pretty fucking significant dogs over the time I've been there. And Randy could have been anything. and he could have also been somebody's worst fucking nightmare as well. So in a family, I've mentioned this in episodes, but in other homes, he could have been a fucking disaster. He could have been the dog that just was too much for people, who really blew their minds and thought, oh my God, what fucking nightmare did I let into my house? This rampaging beast that never shuts down and won't stop. But I love that about him. It was one of his characters that like just drew me to him. I just thought, what an impressive dog you are. You've got so much more that I haven't even explored what you're capable of. I haven't even taken you to the full capability of who you could be. And that was my own laziness sometimes, where I'd just, I'd be preoccupied or busy or something like that. But I kept looking at him and I think you are really impressive. Like, you are an incredible dog. There's so much that I could do with you. You could have been a great IPO then, or whatever type of dog. You could have been a great law enforcement type of dog. He just accelerated it at just being a fantastic dog. Anyway, I've said enough about.
Let's expand on that a little bit, because like beyond Randy himself, like let's talk a little bit about that type of dog, because to speak objectively about a dog that you love very much, and I do too, but he could have been a fucking disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Like, he's typical of the type of German Shepherd that has that nerve that doesn't allow them to like just be. Like, he could never just be, could he? Like, he needed to be told what to do and sort of trapped. And then he was so happy. And that was the work, right? So like when he got to do stuff, then he's like, oh, now I know where the boundaries are and I'm totally happy within this space. And they're the kind of dogs that we see when we go into people's homes and they just wanted to, oh, we had German Shepherds growing up, and when it was time to get a dog, we got a German Shepherd. And it's like, yeah, but fuck, this dog needs to do stuff. And we go, oh yeah, we take him on a run every day. Like we got a working dog because we have an active lifestyle. And it's like, that's not going to cut it, right? Like the physical energy is not what he has. This is nerve. And we don't have the right word for that in English. Like, Bart used to say that all the time. He'd call people's dogs nervy, and people would be like, how dare you, sir? Like, this dog is strong. And it's a different word that he meant.
Yeah.
Like, it's a different thing in that his drive and acceleration and his power comes from that inability to be settled. And the kind of nerve when you talk about like, when you're in anticipation of something awesome, your knee starts to chatter, right? Like, when you start to like tap your foot and you can't stop moving. He's the typical of the type of dog that's his life. He's like, something awesome's about to happen. I got to get all excited about whatever the awesome thing that's going to happen is. And then if nothing awesome does happen and he's left in the backyard, well, the awesome thing that happens is he fucking tears the thing apart, or he realizes like, oh, actually people were terrified of me when I bark at them. So that's something I can do for sure. And then one day, this is the typical kind of dog that, oh, I've learned that it's really fun to push people away via barking. That's a thing that I can do. And that's a place that all this energy can go. And then, someone's left the gate open. Now I'm going to chase that person. And then we'd get to them and be like, well, I presume now I bite them. Like, I'm the wolf and this is a rabbit, and away you go. And like, you would have seen another version of him, that type of dog. We've, any dog trainer that's been in people's homes has seen 100 version of that, right? Like, of the dog that was just this mess all over the place. But then when you put them in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, right? Like someone who knows how to be like, no, point all of that somewhere. Get that energy and like, put that into a focused point. Don't just let it go around all over the place. And like, I always use the same analogy in my mind that, makes a lot of sense to me with a military background, and maybe doesn't make a lot of sense to others. But, inside of a bullet, there's actually not that much gunpowder. There is actually a very small amount of gunpowder. And if you pull the actual projectile off of the casing and pour that gunpowder onto the table and set it on fire, it just goes like, in a little burst and goes everywhere and nothing kind of happens. But when you compress that, right, when you get all of that gunpowder into that brass chamber and then you put that brass chamber into a steel barrel and set it on fire from the back, that is a fucking intense amount of force that knows exactly where it's going and it does exactly what it's meant to do when it gets there. And that's the kind of dog that he was, that he's one of that type, the type that could easily be someone's disastrous fucking headache, or could be like you managed to channel him and make him your dream dog. And he was in that way like a trainer's dream dog, in that he just wanted to do the things and he wanted like, give me some direction, tell me what to do, give me a task. I want a task to do. I remember many times he'd either bite me or you'd reinforce him with the ball or whatever. And often it was almost like, yeah, fucking let's just get this bit over. Like I want the next task. Like this is not about the reward at the end of the tunnel. Like that's how I know I'm in the right tunnel. But it's not about getting to that. It's about being in that like trapped. The kind of dogs that are like, yes, tell me what to do, and then I've got a thing to do. Like, let me hunt, let me fight, let me do whatever it is.
Let me be in the game.
Yeah, as long as he's in it and he's in it with you, he's that kind of dog that moves forward. And I think, often these are the exact kind of dogs. This is why we're able to source so many working dogs from disastrous pet homes, because they're the kind of dogs that make for a horrible existence for the dog and the person when they aren't put within those funnels, right? When they don't have those walls to bounce off and that they're narrowly focused and controlled, they often then can kind of just explode on the spot. And that's not what we want, right? Like what you did with him and everyone's goal that is working towards something with a dog. And certainly if you have a dog like that, you have no fucking choice. Like you have to do this, is that you have to narrowly funnel it, right? Like it has to be, this is the work. And with Randy, it was always, you could see that he would be vibrating and he would be like, looking, what is it? And the moment you told him to do something, you could see in his mind the noise stops. All the noise of taking in all the data of the world and everything, it all just fades away and he's channeled into a space and he looks at you and goes like, that's it. That's what I need. I need to be in this space. And they're the most trainable dogs because it's all they want to do. It's almost like they don't really have their own interests. Like they're high prey. Those kind of dogs are always crazy high prey. If it moves on the floor, they're fucking chasing it, right? Like Mother Nature has put that deeply within them. But the rest of the time, they're kind of like, I don't know what to do. Somebody has to tell me what to do. I'm just going to bounce off the walls. I'm going to experiment with everything that I can possibly think of. And when you tell me it's the right thing, then I'll do it again and again and again. And he's the kind of dog that I remember like, remember his outrageous entry to heel where he'd jump up and fucking like nearly hit you in the head.
He gave me a bloody nose one day.
Yeah.
When he was young and I was training him to do that, I was inside. Narelle was filming it for me and she had to shut the camera off multiple times because I was swearing my head off because one, he hit me in the mouth. I wasn't angry at him. I didn't punish him. I was just like in pain because he hit me in the mouth and then I had blood coming out of my mouth and then he punched me in the nose with like just literally because he had this outrageous. Like I used to tell people when he does a return to heel, he puts as much effort into it as he can. And I said, and he could be in front of me or he could be in a down. And I said, yet he can spring up where his back will punch me under the arm. He can hit that hard. And people, I've got a photo of it. I took photos of it to show people because people on the internet, as they do, would say, oh, bullshit, you're just talking your dog up. But yeah, I was sitting there with blood streaming out of my nose, swearing my head off, and Narelle's going, you're all right. And she had it on camera at the time and I was going to show people and I thought, I probably shouldn't. It's just, like I'm calling him every name under the sun for
you do have footage of it happening. You should dig out some of that and put it in the group because I think you started out, it was pre-PSA that we're doing, and you started out with a front finish, didn't you? And so he would then, from the front finish, you call him into heel and he would spring in a single, like it was one weird single leap where he would go from right in front of you and get to at least your shoulder height typically, and then fling back around and land in position. And I think, you trained it that way because it was just fun and there was no real goal with the dog at that point. It was just your dog. It wasn't like you were going to be assessed against the way that he entered the heel.
When you get those type of dogs that sort of don't have a lid, you want to see how far you can sort of stretch it, what's the limit? And I thought, this is absurd, but I just want to see how much can he do? And he just loved it. I've taught Mando to do the same thing, but Mando is such a proper little man. He just does his poncy little pop around to the side. He's very proud of himself and he thinks it's wonderful, but it's nothing in comparison to what Randy could do. Yeah. Randy was like, it was like he had springs in his fucking heels. Listening to you before, talking about him, you really do a great rendition of who he is as a person. I think that's because, like in the early days, especially, we spent so much time together, like working things out and training and retraining.
Here's how you and I really developed a train, it was training him is how you and I really got to be together. Like
it was Val for you. It was Val for you and it was Randy for me because I remember when you came and you were talking to me and I saw you training with Val and I thought he knows how to train dogs. Like he's trained a spring at a to do some pretty amazing things and to have a really good healing repertoire. And I had admiration for you at that time because I know how unpredictable springers can be. And I've seen so many other people's springers and I've thought, oh, they do good detection work, but they can't control their dog beyond that. Whereas with Val, you were like doing this beautiful little routine and it was almost like a dancing with dogs thing. And I thought that's pretty impressive for somebody I just met and pulled their little springer out of a car and went off and did a routine. And I think that's how you and I develop a great friendship, is because we loved our dogs and we loved doing things with our dogs. And it was good to have somebody to pick their brain that was more obsessive than I was about it. Like, even though we were in the business, for some people it's work. And after work, they're not really keen to train more dogs. They're keen to do the work. And I'm not talking bad about anyone, because I've met some, really incredible people that have done great stuff with their own dogs, but they're not really enthusiastic to say, well, let's hang back after work and do some fun training stuff with their dogs. Whereas you couldn't wait to do things like that. You were like, when can we hang out? When can we train? When can we do things? And I thought, cool, I've got somebody who will let my dog bite them. This is amazing. Because I was trying to train.
You never let go of those people.
Before I met you, I had a few young people and they didn't like the pain. Like they'd say, oh, I don't like this. It doesn't feel good. And I've changed my mind about it. And I'd say, you're wearing protective gear. But I also didn't know how hard Randy bit. So, maybe he was the wrong type of dog to warm them up on. But with your own dog, Randy would never bite me the same way he would bite everyone else. And I did all his pre-bite work. I taught him hold and barks. Same thing I do with Mando. I teach my own dogs outs on me, and I teach them to bite, and I teach them a lot of work. And then I get them to integrate with decoys so they can learn, don't just do this with me, do it with the decoy, because the decoy is now going to make it serious, where I'm doing the play stuff with you. Like, everything you're doing with me is just
a fun.
It's like father and son. We're just doing a fun little boxing session. But when you get in the training and you're sparring with other people, it gets more serious. And this is where it gets a little intense, and you're going to feel some things that you're going to have to work through. But that will test you, and you'll find out if you've got heart for it and you've got the game for it to go on. Randy had always, anything that him and I would do, he would do it well. He would never clamp down on me, and other people would say, oh, no, it almost feels like his teeth are coming through the jute. And I just think, are you just soft? Are you just a soft person? But when you said it to me, I knew you weren't a soft person. You said to me, oh, man, he fucking bites hard. Like, he's got a super, super bite. And I thought, wow, that's quite a compliment and impressive for old Randall.
We used to train on Tuesday mornings. That's how we started training
Tuesdays
together all
and
the time.
Thursdays.
Well, yeah, but I remember you saying to me once, like, okay, hey, I've got this incredible dog and I really want to start taking the training of him seriously. Like, we want to start putting in the effort. And we're like, okay, let's gel calendars. And we both had like an hour. It was like Tuesday mornings, 9 till 10. We were both like, oh yeah, we can be clear there.
Yeah,
so I'd drive out to your place and we'd fuck around with Val and do some detection stuff. And then we'd work Randy. And that was just part of the regular week. Like, then you had a meeting to go to and I had another thing that I had to go to, and it was out your way. So that's why we'd go out that way. And it was just part of the regular week of working him all the time. And so that's what I mean about these foundation dogs. And they're more than the sum of their parts, like, it's more than that. He's just your dog, because he's fucking my dog too. Like,
yeah,
I spent a lot of time on that fucking dog,
Yeah.
Like, it's a community effort with those sorts of things. But also, I didn't teach him shit. He taught me. Like, that's why I put him in that category. And when I saw your post, I was like, oh, fuck. That's a big part of my life. Like, that's an influential character in my life. That's as important as some of the real human mentors that I've had, because I'm like, that dog taught me how to do this kind of stuff. And you taught me, but he was the channel through which it was going through. It was the you and him combination. So you just sort of can't overstate how important those dogs can be, not just as themselves, but the relationships that they can bring.
You're 100% right, mate. I mean, there's so many dogs over time that I've been so blessed to share a path with them and have them as a soundboard to try things out on. And those community dogs are wonderful, and they really enhance the experience of learning to become a trainer and learning to love the craft, and also developing friends outside that as well. Like, they bring communities together. And I was so happy to share Randy with so many people, like, for whatever reason it was. I remember I was in class in NDTF and somebody said to me, would you mind if I had him healing by my side? And I said, not at all. Stick the lead on him. And, I said, I'll show you how to do it properly so you can experience. And they said, because I've never learned how to heal a dog before, and I just want to feel what it feels like to have a dog that's focused and walks by your side and does it all. I said, yep, have at it. For Randy, it was just like, oh, this is so cool. I'm getting to do the thing which is going to lead me to biting the ball, or like, as you said, just be in the moment and share that sort of vibration. Leaping out of that conversation into another one, which is what you reminded me of before, Randy met thousands of people. He wasn't one of those dogs that just met, like a couple of people here and there. He met thousands of people, and he met trainers from all over the world. And some of them he didn't have much to do with. They'd sort of go and see him and say, oh yeah, nice dog. And other people, I'm not going to say the name of the person, but we were having a conversation when we were having a few drinks on the couch one night, and they were staying there doing a seminar, and they said, why don't you teach him a place? And I said, that would be the cruelest fucking thing I could ever do to that dog. And they said, yeah, but why? And I said, because he won't enjoy it. And because he's not enjoying it, I won't enjoy it. It's just not him. My other dogs, 100%. I'm happy to work on doing things like that. And I said, but I don't see a need for it. I don't have the need for him to hold a place all that time. I said, he will hold a 10-minute downstay. He'll hate every minute of that 10 minutes. It's the worst part of his life, but he'll do it. He'll do it for me. Making him sit on a bed for periods of time is not Randy's MO. And they didn't understand that. Like, they really felt that compromised me as a trainer. But as I was trying to explain to them, yes, you know a lot about dogs. Yes, you have a good repertoire with your tools and your capabilities and your explanations and your selling points and so forth, but you don't understand my dog, and you don't understand the lifestyle he needs. So this is where I've tried to explain to people over periods of time, you may know a lot of things about dogs, and you may have a vast Rolodex of experiences that you can call on, but you don't know about everybody's dogs in their situations and what they need. Sometimes you just need to shut the fuck up. That's what you need to do. Like if somebody calls on your experience and says, hey, I need help with this, of course, that's where your expertise comes in, and you can make a bunch of suggestions. And it's not that I think badly of that person making the suggestion. I understand what they saw in their experiences and what they think they need to do with dogs. But Randy's not that type of dog. Mando would love it. Mando has got a place. We teach him to get on his bed and stay on his bed and do those sort of things. He's a Roddy. He's a bit more chilled. He's still a busy Roddy, don't get me wrong. For a Rottweiler, he's got a lot of, like, I need to do things and I need to play and I need to run around and I need to do stuff. He's a lot more chilled than what Randy was. Randy is basically like, let's fuck shit up. I want to dance. I want to do stuff. Like, I want to be busy. And the amount of conversations I had with people where they say, you say that he didn't like being inside. How do you know he didn't like being inside? I said, it's not that he didn't like being inside. He didn't like being trapped inside. It's like he didn't like being contained.
Well, contained loosely though, right? Because when he was inside, he wanted to be in a crate. Like, that's, I think, really hard for some people to wrap their head around, is there's proportionality to that kind of thing. Like, to be just loose in the house means that he would be bouncing off the walls, and to be then told, okay, but you got to be on this bed in the house, means that he would just be there vibrating, thinking about how much he'd like to bounce off the walls. But then when he's in the crate, then he's like, oh, okay, well, this is sufficiently contained. Like, this is the channel that I'm comfortable in.
The crate was a different story for him because the crate was closed off, and then he could feel like, for his perspective, and I don't know it exactly, but it's a summary that I'm sort of going through. I believe that he felt like, okay, the door is closed. I'm in here. This is what I'm doing. I can be at peace with this because there are no other options other than to just hop in here and go to sleep. And I'm content with that. The crate for him was about coming into the house at the end of the night. If it was cold, he was becoming an old man. And even when he was a younger dog, we loved him being in. All the dogs hop inside in their crates. He really enjoyed it. It was part of his community. But having him inside the house, he'd be whining and he'd be walking around and he'd be looking to counter surf. There'd be nothing on the counter, but he'd just want to jump up there because he could. And people would see that and go, yeah, that really reflects on your capability to control the dog. And I said, you've never had a dog like Randy, have you? Like, you've never experienced the explosive nature of a dog that really can't be contained. And I said, it's kind of like somebody who just feels like they need to wander the earth. They're not content just to sit in one place at any one time. They kind of feel like, I've been here and I've done that and I need to move on and I need to experience a different part of life. And that's what the thing that most frustrated me about him was the thing I admired and loved about him the most, is that he was different to all the other dogs I had. And that's why I learned so much more about him. And that's how I learned to relax and think, I don't have to make you under my yoke all the time. I don't have to put a knee to your throat and stop you from loving life and being so supportive. I think one of the hardest things I ever had to do was retire him from work. It was a very, very difficult moment. I remember the day I made the decision, like I came inside and I just put my head in my hands and sobbed because I just thought this incredible, free-spirited dog that really wants to do this, he loves it, but he's going to destroy himself. Like I will literally end his life fast if I don't reduce his capability. And I started like weaning him away from it. It wasn't like a hard stop, but the reason why I'm doing that for anybody who wants to know why, like why did you do it? What were the reasons that you came to or the conclusions that you came to make sure that happened? Well, he'd cracked 2 of his canines. So he'd been to the vet and Jane looked at his canines and she said, look, you either have to reduce the strain and the load that he's under or we have to take those teeth out, which meant that he was going to lose 2 canines. Dogs have done that before. Remy's cracked and broken a tooth, but Randy at that stage, he was like 9.5 or 10 or something like that. So it was getting to that stage of life. He couldn't move like he used to do. His hips were gumming up. He would try and jump into the heel and I'd forbid him from doing it. I wouldn't even ask him to do heel. And in fact, I'd just put my hand down and stop him from jumping. So he just learned to shuffle around into it. So we reshaped it and he learned that. He came to try and accept it. And sometimes he'd look at me and go, Are you sure that's what you want me to do? Because I want to do the big jump. He couldn't do it. Like he physically couldn't do it. And there were times where he'd be walking in the backyard and I could see that he was just stiff or he'd make a little whiny noise or something like that. And I thought, there's no reason to make him keep doing it. So every now and then I'd go out there with a wedge and him and I'd just have a little session under the tree where we would do wedge work. And especially if he saw Mando going out to do work, like he fucking hated that. And I had to try and sneak Mando out sometimes in the early days, like so he wouldn't notice, like take him into the house first and then put his harness on him because I just knew how much of an impact it was having on Randy and it was breaking my heart. Like it was terrible.
He would bark at me those nights. So like, like we'd finish training one night and like at the back end when he's not coming out anymore, right? Like it gets more infrequent and then he sort of isn't. And then, where his kennel was at the back of your place there is near where the bathroom was that I would like take a pee before I would go home. And so everything would be over. The night's settled. All the dogs are either like our club dogs have gone. The kennel dogs have all quieted down. And then I would walk within, it's about 10 meters of his kennel to go up. And it's not like I made any noise to get there, but he'd sent me and it would be that super distinctive bark that like sounded like his bark when he would do that was like something spooling. Yeah, it wasn't like he didn't come out with the rough at the start. He would like, and then the wolf would come after that. And I would have to go and be like, hey, Randy, good to hear from you. And then he'd be like, all right, that's all. I just needed you to know that I'm fucking in here still. And I'm like, yeah, mate. Yeah, cool. No worries. And then I'd go back away.
Apart from Narelle and I, you're one of his favorite people in the world. Like he really...
He spent a long time biting me.
He did. He really did. He was very enthusiastic to meet you. And as you said, hearing your voice would elevate him sometimes where he'd be going, hey, I'm here. Don't forget about me.
Yeah.
And like I said, you get to those stages where, and I remember retiring Harley in the old days when he used to love doing the same thing as well. We had this guy over doing a seminar. Harley was there and one of the guys said, oh, can I work Harley? And I said, yeah, but take it easy. He's an older dog. He didn't mean anything, but he just knew what an old fucking battle hound Harley was. And, I think he remembered that Harley was a large and brutal type of dog when he was younger. He gave him a hard flick in the ribs and Harley sort of let out this gasp. He looked up at me because I was going to kill the guy for doing it. And he goes, oh man, I'm so sorry. I said, dude, you're fighting with like the equivalent of an 85-year-old man. I said, this is an exhibition bout. This is not a match. And I said, do that again and we'll spar. And he goes, yeah, I'm really sorry. It was disrespectful. I'm really, really sorry. There are also things that, and this is the reason that you get into that retirement process is because you got to have that duty of care, that fortitude and foresight for your dog to advocate for them to say, I know that you want to do this. I know that your DNA wants to do this. There's things that I want to do too. I'd been decoying for years. The bursters in my shoulders, they're both exploded. It's been so many fucking decades of dogs hitting me, years and years and years of it. Like my bursters are fucking destroyed. But it's not just the dogs. It was from having a martial arts-esque type of careers and, breakdancing when I was a kid. Yeah, a life well lived. It's all of those things that we've talked about and joked about and laughed about on the podcast over the years. Those sort of things, I want to do those sort of things sometimes, but then the pain and the suffering that I feel the next day I think to myself, it's not worth it just to try and relive an old memory or to try and resurface this old ego. And if I feel that about myself, if I have that enough restraint and sensibility for myself, then why the fuck wouldn't I advocate for my dog to do the same sort of thing? And as I said, it was heartbreaking. I really suffered over retiring Randy. I used to look in his eyes and just think, oh, you poor old man. And I didn't even want to take him out there to see it, because then I thought, well, that's not doing him any justice to be out there and think, why aren't I getting a bite? It's actually punishment to him. And these are the considerations you have to have. Like, you have to make it known. Would this make the situation better, or would it have like an implicating factor that makes it much worse?
Yeah. Well, so we had a whole plan for an episode, and we had said, oh, well, we'll just address Randy at the start. But I've actually really enjoyed sort of reminiscing about him, thinking about all the crazy shit that we used to do. And truly, I sort of realized as we were talking, like, he is the reason that me and you are friends. And it's the whole reason why all of this, it's how we got to here. So it's pretty remarkable, to be honest.
As I mentioned before, you know, like, you're one of his favorite people, and you're one of my favorite people as well. And I think that when I look back at all the adventures that we've had, which have included him, and the things that came about because of him, we were both very lucky to have shared him. And as I've mentioned before, and you mentioned before, so many of these dogs get to share different lifelines with different people. And I can never thank so many of the people who took an interest in him or were kind to him, you know, like staff that cared for him when I was away, people who house sat, and everybody would send me pictures of having some love with Randy in the backyard. And to them, he wasn't supposed to be a scary type of dog. He was just a dog that loved people. He loved life. He loved fitting into anything that he possibly could. And people would remark to me, you know, they'd say, geez, he's a lot of dog, isn't he? He's like trying to contain a cyclone in a glass jar. And I said, yeah, he's a lot. Because he's a lot, that's what I'm so infatuated about him. Like, he makes life very interesting. Some of the times when I'm struggling the hardest in life, I said that dog can really take my mind off it, because then I have to think about what am I going to do with Randy and what's happening next with this dog. Not in a negative way, in a fun way, because he challenged me so much. And that's why he made me, and he made other people better versions of themselves, because thinking outside that square about how to rise to the occasion and how to shape things around doing the next step of his training evolution was fun, and it was also invigorating. So it's an ode to an old friend, somebody that I care about so much, and I'm really appreciating that so many other people did as well. So thank you all for your exceptional love and support.
All right. Well, that's it. For another episode of the Canine Paradigm. As always, if you like what you hear, just like, rate, share, subscribe, and do it through whatever subscription service you download us from, and then just go to another one. Do it there. No one checks. You're allowed. If you want to support the show, best way to do that is to jump into Patreon. A few bucks a month to get you a giant backlog of information as well as new stuff going forward. There's different tiers you can get in there. You can see me every month, answer questions if you like. You can ask those questions if you like. Another way to support the show is Spring. You can get in there. There's links in the show notes, and you can buy all kinds of crap with our logo on it. One of the things, I saw a couple during the week. It always makes me happy when I see someone's unrelated training photo or video or something, and in the background of their photo is our tapestry on the wall. When you wanted to get the tapestries, I was like, what the fuck are we selling those for? Who the hell's going to buy those? But evidently people do, and I really appreciate that they do. We get like $8 or something for when you do that, but it's the support that I really appreciate. It's having us on the wall so that when people's clients come in and they go, what the fuck is this? And they go, oh, this is a podcast you should listen to. And that's what we appreciate, the support. If you want to get in touch with us, best way to do that is to jump into our Facebook discussion group. As always, I'll make another promise of like trying to engage in there more. I keep an eye on everything. I try and be involved in conversations, but one of my goals for this year is to engage more in that sort of stuff. So stand by for that. If you want to get in touch with us directly, shoot us an email. We are info@thecanineparadigm.com. Love you all. Goodbye.